Something is wrong with your skull. Not a thought, not a feeling, something structural. Your brain is physically shrinking right now. And the thing causing it, you've been ignoring it for years. Your body has a stress system. It was built for one purpose: keep you alive in emergencies. A predator appears. Cortisol floods your bloodstream instantly. Heart rate spikes. Pupils blow wide open. Muscles prime for action. You run or you fight. Then the threat is gone. Cortisol drops, body resets. That is the design. A clean on and off switch. Except something broke that switch. And once it breaks, it doesn't feel broken, it feels normal. And it's been stuck on for weeks, for months, maybe years. Deadlines feel like predators. Unanswered messages feel like threats. Uncertain futures feel like emergencies. Your nervous system cannot tell the difference between a lion and a work email at midnight, so it treats them the same. Cortisol floods, heart spikes, body braces. Except the email never fully ends. The deadline becomes the next deadline. The anxiety becomes the baseline. And cortisol, when it never drops, this is where it stops being invisible and starts becoming damage. It stops being a survival tool. It becomes a poison, a slow one. And the worst part is, you won't feel it happening with a very specific target. There is a region deep inside your brain called the hippocampus. Think of it as your brain's memory center. Shaped like a seahorse, sits right at your temple. This is where memory is born, where emotional context gets filed, where your sense of continuity lives. The story of who you are runs through this structure, and chronic cortisol destroys it. Not as metaphor, not as exaggeration. A 2012 study out of Yale used MRI imaging to confirm it. People under prolonged chronic stress showed measurably reduced hippocampal volume. The structure was physically smaller. Gray matter was gone. Cells had died. Stress did not just affect your mood, it reshaped the physical organ. Your brain changed shape from stress. That is what this video is about. And it gets worse first. Because stress doesn't just take something away. It replaces it with something else. The hippocampus is not the only target. While it shrinks, another region is growing. And the combination is devastating. Your prefrontal cortex sits just behind your forehead. This is the part that makes you feel in control. It is the rational command center. The part that slows you down. That weighs consequences. That says, wait, stop. It is why humans don't just act on every impulse every second. NIH research confirmed what many suspected. Chronic cortisol exposure thins gray matter in the prefrontal cortex. Your ability to regulate yourself, to pause, to reason, to resist, is literally eroding. The brakes are wearing out, and you won't notice until you actually need them, and at the same time, the gas pedal is getting bigger. The amygdala is your threat alarm. Like a smoke detector that starts going off for steam. Two almond-shaped clusters deep in your brain. They fire when danger is detected. They are fast. Faster than conscious thought. Fear arrives before conscious thought does. Under chronic stress, the amygdala physically enlarges. A study in Nature Neuroscience documented structural growth in the stressed amygdala. It rewires toward hypervigilance. It starts detecting danger everywhere, in a neutral face, in a quiet room, in an ordinary afternoon. The alarm never fully turns off. Because the structure has changed. Think about what that combination means. Your calm, rational brain is shrinking. Your fear response brain is growing. The result is predictable. Every situation gets threat-coded first. That's why small things suddenly feel overwhelming. Before logic ever arrives, before context is considered, before you can step back. The amygdala fires instantly. The prefrontal cortex responds slowly. And under stress, it responds weaker than it used to. That gap between alarm and reason is where anxiety lives, where spiraling lives, where regret avoidance behavior comes from. This is the trap nobody explains. Anxious people are told to calm down, to think more rationally, to stop catastrophizing. But the prefrontal cortex, the rational brake, has been thinned by stress, and the amygdala, the alarm, has been enlarged by the same stress. You're being told to steer a car with worn brakes and a stuck accelerator. This is not a willpower failure, this is architecture. A deeper system is driving this, called the HPA axis, hypothalamus and pituitary adrenal. This is the chain of command for cortisol production. Hypothalamus signals pituitary, pituitary signals adrenal glands. Adrenals release cortisol, then a feedback loop should kick in. Cortisol rises, hypothalamus detects it, signals slow down. Under chronic stress, that loop breaks. The feedback mechanism dysregulates. The system loses its off switch entirely. Your brain is now in a loop it cannot exit on its own. Cortisol stays elevated. Hippocampus keeps shrinking, prefrontal cortex keeps thinning, amygdala keeps growing, and every cycle reinforces the next. The stressed brain is better at staying stressed. That is the horror. But stress doesn't want you knowing this. The same property that lets stress physically reshape your brain works in reverse. Neuroplasticity. Look that word up later. Your brain is not fixed. It never was. It is constantly remodeling itself based on what you expose it to. Stress is just one input. You can feed it different ones. A landmark 2011 Harvard study, led by Sarah Lazar, used MRI to measure brain structure in people who completed an 8-week mindfulness program. Hippocampal density increased, measurably. On scan, the brain did not just function better, it physically regrew. The structure reversed. Here is what that means. The damage is not permanent. The shape your brain is in now is not permanent. But the reversal requires something most people get completely backwards. You can't force out a stress brain. Effort under cortisol produces more cortisol. Gritting your teeth and pushing harder signals continued emergency to your nervous system. The brain only begins structural repair in states of perceived safety, not productivity, not achievement, safety. The body must believe the threat ended before repair can begin. This is the counterintuitive truth. Rest is not the reward after recovery. Rest is the mechanism of recovery. Think about what the research is saying. The brain you have right now was built by chronic stress, not by default. Optimized for threat detection, efficient at catastrophic thinking, tuned to anticipate the worst. That was adaptive once. It kept your ancestors alive. But in modern life, it keeps you exhausted. 3 inputs accelerate the reversal. Aerobic exercise, 20 minutes, triggers release of BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor. It is essentially fertilizer for neurons. It rebuilds what cortisol stripped. Deep sleep is the second input. During slow-wave sleep, cortisol is metabolized and cleared. The hippocampus replays and consolidates. Structural repair happens at night, not during the grind. The third input is any practice that activates the parasympathetic system. Breathwork, cold exposure, stillness. Not because they are trendy, because they chemically signal safety to an HPA axis that forgot what safety feels like. Here's where you stand right now. You have been operating inside a brain that stress reshaped. Smaller hippocampus, thinner prefrontal cortex, enlarged hyperactive amygdala, a cortisol system stuck in a loop. That explains a lot: the rumination, the reactivity, the inability to just switch off. That was never a character flaw. That was a structure, and structures can be rebuilt. Your brain grew into this shape. Under pressure, it can grow out of it. The same plasticity that made the damage makes the recovery. You already have everything needed. You just needed to understand what you were actually dealing with. Now you do. If your brain keeps pulling you toward questions like this one, questions about what is actually happening underneath the surface, stay in Nero's head. Because the brain you woke up with today is not the one you have to keep.